Nora Ellis had never imagined her first night in the Grand Marcellus Hotel would begin with a mistake. She'd spent the last 3 years drafting blueprints in a cramped cubicle, her world measured in millimeters and deadlines, not marble floors and panoramic city views. So when the concierge apologized for the inconvenience and handed her the velvet keycard to the Imperial Suite, Nora hesitated. Sure, there'd been a mix-up, but exhaustion and curiosity won. She accepted the upgrade, promising herself she'd ask questions later. The elevator doors opened on the 57th floor with a soft chime. Nora stepped out, her heels sinking into plush carpet, the air perfumed with something expensive and unplaceable. The suite itself was a world apart, walls of glass. A chandelier that looked like a frozen waterfall, a bathroom larger than her. Entire apartment. She laughed, a sound of disbelief, and set her battered tote on the velvet bench by the window. She wandered, touching everything. The counter was cool under her fingers, the sheets impossibly soft. She caught her reflection in the massive bathroom mirror and paused. In this light, she looked like someone else, someone who belonged here. She let her hair down, watching it fall over her shoulders, and for a moment, she allowed herself to feel seen. What Nora didn't know was that behind the mirror, a different kind of eye was watching. Across the hotel, in a private surveillance room, Silas Hawthorne leaned forward in his chair. His face was half-lit by the glow of a dozen monitors, each one a window into a different secret. He'd built his fortune on secrets, buying them, selling them, using them to keep his empire untouchable. But tonight, his attention was fixed on one feed, the Imperial Suite. He'd expected to see a man named Victor Lang, a rival whose taste for blackmail was matched only by his greed. Instead, he saw Nora Ellis, junior architect with no known enemies and a reputation for honesty. Silas frowned, tapping a finger against his jaw. Elliot, he called, not looking away from the screen. Elliot Voss, his cousin and head of security, appeared in the doorway. Problem. The suite was supposed to be empty, Silas said, or occupied by Lang. Who's the woman? Elliot scanned the feed, then checked his tablet. Nora Ellis, architect, works for the firm overseeing the East Wing renovation. No criminal record. No flagged contacts. Silas watched Nora as she moved through the suite, her gestures tentative, almost reverent. She doesn't look like someone with an agenda. Elliot shrugged. Maybe she's just lucky. No one's that lucky in this hotel, Silas muttered. Meanwhile, Nora explored the suite, trying to convince herself she deserved this. She ran a bath, poured herself a glass of wine, and tried to relax. But the feeling of being watched lingered, a prickling at the base of her neck, a flicker in the corner of her eye. She told herself it was nerves. After all, who would spy on a nobody like her? As the night deepened, the city lights painted shifting patterns on the ceiling. Nora slipped into the bath, letting the water wash away the day's stress. She closed, her eyes imagining a life where she belonged in places like this. In the surveillance room, Silas hesitated. He knew he should shut off the feed, delete the footage, and forget the woman in the suite. But something about her quiet grace, the way she seemed to shrink and expand in the space, made it impossible to look away. He felt a pang of guilt, but curiosity won out. Elliot watched Silas, concern creasing his brow. You're getting too close to this, Silas. It's not like you. Silas didn't answer. He was already lost in the reflection on the screen. Later, Nora dressed for bed, her movements slow and deliberate. She caught her reflection again, this time noticing a faint shimmer in the mirror line that shouldn't be there. She leaned closer, frowning. The glass felt colder than it should. She pressed her palm against it, half expecting something to happen. Nothing did. She laughed at herself, shaking her head. Paranoid, she whispered. But as she turned away, the shimmer flickered once more, and the feeling of being watched returned, sharper than before. Across the hotel, Silas finally forced himself to look away. He ordered the feed shut down, but not before saving a copy to a private drive. He told himself it was for security, not for evidence. But the truth was harder to name. Elliot lingered after Silas left, staring at the blank screen. He'd seen obsession before, and it never ended well. In the suite, Nora lay awake, listening to the hum of the city below. She tried to convince herself the night was just a strange, luxurious dream. But as sleep claimed her, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd stepped into a story that wasn't hers, a story whose ending she couldn't yet see. And somewhere, in the shadows behind the glass, the story was just beginning. The morning. After her unexpected stay in the Imperial Suite, Nora Ellis tried to shake off the unease that clung to her like the scent of expensive soap. The city's rhythm pulled her back into routine coffee in a paper cup. The subway's metallic screech, the familiar hum of the office. Yet every time she caught her reflection in a window, she remembered the shimmer in the mirror, the sense of being watched. She told herself it was nerves, nothing more, but the memory lingered. At the Grand Marcellus, Silas Hawthorne sat in his office, eyes fixed on a single frame from the surveillance feed. Nora, standing before the mirror, her expression open and unguarded. He should have deleted the footage. Instead, he kept a copy, encrypted and hidden. He told himself it was for security, but the truth gnawed at him. He'd crossed a line, and now he was tethered to a stranger's fate. Elliot Voss, head of security. And Silas's cousin entered the office with a tablet in hand. "The suite feed's been wiped, as you asked," he said. "But I noticed a backup was made. Want to explain?" Silas didn't look up. "Precaution." Elliot's voice was low. "You're not yourself, Silas. No. This isn't about Lang anymore." "Is it?" Silas closed the laptop. "Leave it, Elliot." Across town, Nora's day unraveled in small, unsettling ways. Her work email pinged with a message from an anonymous sender. Sometimes what you see isn't real. She stared at the screen, heart thudding. Prank, she thought. But then another message arrived. "The suite holds more secrets than you know." She tried to focus on her blueprints, but her mind kept circling back to the suite, the cold glass, the flicker in the mirror, the feeling of eyes on her skin. She deleted the messages, but the anxiety remained. At lunch, Nora met her best friend, Juno Park, at a crowded cafe. Juno listened as Nora recounted the strange night and the cryptic emails. "Maybe it's just a weird coincidence," Juno said, stirring her tea. "Or maybe someone at the hotel has too much time on their hands." Nora forced a laugh. "I sound paranoid, don't I?" "Not paranoid, just cautious," Juno replied. "Promise me you'll be careful." Meanwhile, Silas instructed his team to erase all traces of Nora's stay from the hotel's records. But curiosity gnawed at him. He scrolled through her professional profile: junior architect, no enemies, a reputation for diligence. She was ordinary, and yet something about her felt significant. That evening, Nora received another message. "Meet me in the lobby at 7. Answers await." She hesitated, but her curiosity was stronger than her fear. She texted Juno her location, just in case, and made her way to the hotel. The lobby was a cathedral of glass and gold, bustling with guests. Nora scanned the crowd, searching for a familiar face. Instead, a hotel attendant approached, handing her a sealed envelope. Inside was a single line: "Trust your instincts. Not all reflections are true." As she stood there, confused, Silas watched from the mezzanine above. He'd orchestrated the encounter, wanting to gauge her reaction. Elliot, watching from a distance, frowned. "You're playing a dangerous game," he muttered under his breath. Later that night, Nora sat at her kitchen table, the envelope before her. She replayed every moment in the suite, every odd detail, the mirror, the shimmer, the feeling of being watched. She pulled out her notebook and began to sketch the suite from memory, marking the mirror's location, the angles of the walls. She was determined to find the truth. Across the city, Silas poured himself a drink, staring at his reflection in the window. He told himself he was protecting Nora, keeping her away from the real dangers lurking in the hotel's shadows. Deep down, he knew he was just as trapped as she was, caught between guilt and fascination. Elliot, meanwhile, dug deeper into the hotel's security logs. He found evidence of tampered footage, unauthorized backups, and a pattern that pointed to Silas's involvement. He confronted his cousin late that night. "You're risking everything for a woman you don't even know." The voice was quiet. "It's not about her. It's about the truth." Elliot shook his head. Truth has a price, Silas. Don't let it cost you everything. As midnight approached, Nora stared at her sketches, determination hardening in her eyes. She would return to the suite. She would find out what was hidden behind the glass. In the shadows behind the mirror, secrets waited to be revealed. End. As Nora prepared to step back into the world of the Grand Marcellus, she had no idea just how deep the reflection would go. The Grand Marcellus Hotel shimmered beneath a canopy of city lights, its marble steps awash in the glow of 100 camera flashes. Inside, the annual charity gala was in full swing, a swirl of laughter, clinking glasses, and the quiet tension of secrets waiting to be revealed. Nora Ellis stood near the entrance, her nerves hidden beneath a borrowed dress and careful makeup. She'd almost refused the invitation her boss had insisted, saying the firm needed a representative, and Nora, ever the team player, had reluctantly agreed. She felt like an imposter amid the glittering crowd, clutching her clutch like a lifeline. Across the ballroom, Silas Hawthorne observed the guests with practiced detachment. He moved through the crowd like a ghost greeting donors, exchanging pleasantries, but never lingering. His mind was elsewhere, replaying the image of Nora in the Imperial Suite. The way she'd looked at her own reflection as if searching for answers. Elliot Voss, head of security, hovered at the edge of the room, eyes scanning for threats. He wasn't here for the wine or the music. He was here because Silas had insisted, and because the hotel's network had been breached again earlier that day. Someone was probing the system, looking for something or someone. Nora found herself drawn to the edge of the dance floor, watching couples glide across the polished wood. She felt out of place, but before she could retreat, a familiar voice spoke beside her. "You look like you're plotting an escape," Silas said, his tone light. Nora turned, surprised to see him. "I'm just not used to places like this." Silas smiled, a real one that softened the sharp lines of his face. "Neither am I, if I'm honest." They stood in companionable silence, the noise of the gala fading into the background. Nora glanced at Silas, searching for the man behind the reputation. "Do you come to these often?" "Only when I have to," Silas replied. "But tonight, I'm glad I did." Their conversation was layered with double meanings, each word a step closer, each pause a test of trust. Nora found herself relaxing, drawn in by Silas's quiet intensity. Meanwhile, Elliot moved through the crowd, his attention caught by a flicker on his security tablet. Another breach. Someone was accessing archived footage from the Imperial Suite. He narrowed his eyes, following the signal to a guest near the back of the room. Elliot approached, his presence enough to send the would-be hacker scurrying away. Juno Park, Nora's best friend and confidant, arrived late, scanning the room for her. She found Nora with Silas and shot her a warning look. When Nora excused herself to get some air, Juno followed. Outside on the terrace, the city stretched out in a mosaic of light. Juno leaned on the railing beside Nora. "Are you sure about this?" she asked quietly. Nora sighed. "I don't know. There's something about him, Juno. Something I can't explain. Just be careful. Men like him, they don't play by the same rules." It's inside. Silas received a message from Elliot. "We have a problem. Someone's targeting the suite footage." Silas's jaw tightened. He excused himself from a conversation with a senator and found Elliot near the security office. "Who was it?" Silas asked. "No idea yet, but they're good. Covered their tracks." "I think it's connected to the messages Nora's been getting." Silas's expression darkened. "Keep digging. I want to know who's behind this." Back in the ballroom, Nora's phone buzzed with another anonymous message. "The truth is closer than you think. Trust no one." Her hands shook as she read it. She scanned the room, suddenly aware of how many eyes were watching. The gala's main event, a charity auction, began, drawing everyone's attention. Silas returned to Nora's side, noticing her distress. "Is everything all right?" he asked softly. She hesitated, then showed him the message. Silas's eyes narrowed. "Do you know who's sending these?" Nora shook her head. "They started after my night in the suite. I thought it was just a prank. But now..." Silas placed a reassuring hand on her arm. "You're not alone in this. Let me help." "Yes." The auction ended. An attendant approached Nora with a sealed invitation. Inside was an address and a time: midnight, the Imperial Suite. No signature, just a single line, "See what's hidden." Behind the glass, Nora's heart pounded. She looked at Silas, uncertainty in her eyes. Should I go? Silas hesitated, torn between protecting her and respecting her autonomy. If you do, I'll be there. You won't face this alone. Juno, watching from across the room, saw the exchange and frowned. She texted Nora, "Call me if anything feels wrong." As the gala wound down, Nora slipped away, her mind racing with questions. Silas and Elliot regrouped in the security office, reviewing footage and piecing together the clues. Elliot voiced his suspicions. Someone's using Nora as a pawn. We need to get ahead of this. Silas nodded grimly. Tonight, we find out who's really behind the mirror. At midnight, Nora stood before the door to the Imperial Suite, the velvet keycard trembling in her hand. She took a deep breath and stepped inside, determined to uncover the truth no matter what waited behind the glass. In the shadows, the masquerade of trust was about to shatter. The Imperial Suite was silent, except for the soft click of the door. Behind Nora Ellis, moonlight spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting silver lines across the marble floor. The air felt charged, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Nora's heart hammered in her chest as she stepped inside, the invitation still clutched in her hand. She moved cautiously, her eyes tracing the familiar lines of the suite. Everything looked the same as before, the velvet bench by the window, the crystal decanter on the sideboard, the enormous mirror above the vanity. But now, every detail felt loaded with meaning, every shadow a possible secret. She approached the mirror, her reflection wavering in the dim light. She remembered the shimmer she'd seen before, the faint line that shouldn't have been there. She reached out, fingers trembling, and pressed against the glass. This time, she felt a subtle give, as if the mirror was mounted on a hinge. Her breath caught. She pushed harder, and the mirror swung open with a soft creak. Behind the glass was a narrow, hidden space, barely wide enough for a person to stand. Wires snaked along the walls, and a small camera was mounted at eye level, its red light blinking steadily. Nora stared, horror and fury warring inside her. "You found it," a voice said quietly. Nora spun around. Silas Hawthorne stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. He'd entered silently, as if he belonged in the shadows. "How long?" Nora demanded, her voice shaking. "How long have you been watching?" Silas stepped into the room, hands raised in surrender. "Weren't supposed to be you." The surveillance was meant for someone else, a man named Victor Lang. He's been using this suite to conduct illegal deals. I was trying to gather evidence. "So you just watched whoever ended up in here?" Nora's voice was sharp, wounded. "You let me become part of your investigation without my consent." Silas's shoulders slumped. "I'm sorry. Have shut it down the moment I saw you. But then you started getting those messages, and I realized someone else was using the suite's secrets against you." Nora stared at him, anger giving way to confusion. "Think messages? You think they're connected to Lang?" "I do," Silas said. "Someone wants to scare you off, or worse, use you as leverage." The door opened again, and Elliot Voss entered, his face grim. "We have a problem," he said. "Someone's accessed the backup footage. They know Nora found the mirror." Silas cursed under his breath. "Lang, maybe," Elliot replied. "Or someone working for him. Either way, we're running out of time." Nora looked between the two men, her mind racing. "What do we do now?" Silas turned to her, his eyes earnest. "We need your help. You know the layout of the hotel better than anyone. If we can prove what Lang's been doing, and who's been helping him, we can shut this down for good." Nora hesitated. "And if I say no, then you walk away," Silas said softly. "I'll do everything I can to keep you safe. But I can't do this alone." Elliot watched the exchange, his loyalty torn. He'd always followed Silas, but now he wondered if his cousin's obsession had gone too far. Still, he couldn't deny the stakes. If they failed, Nora would be the first casualty. Nora took a shaky breath. "Tell me what you need, Silas." smiled, relief flickering across his face. We need to access the security hub. If we can pull the logs from the last week, we'll have proof of Lang's meetings and the people he's been working with. Elliot nodded. I'll handle. The guards. Nora, can you get us into the maintenance tunnels? She nodded, her architect's mind already mapping the route. There's a service door behind the laundry room. It leads straight to the security hub. Let's move, Silas said. They slipped out of the suite, moving quickly and quietly. Through the hotel's back corridors, Nora led the way, her nerves steadying as she focused on the task. She unlocked the service door and guided them through the narrow tunnels, the hum of machinery masking their footsteps. At the security hub, Elliot disabled the cameras while Nora used her keycard to access the control panel. Silas downloaded the logs, his hands shaking with adrenaline. Got it, he whispered. This is everything we need. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them. Nora whirled around to see a tall figure blocking the exit. Victor Lang himself, flanked by two burly men. Going somewhere? Lang sneered. Silas stepped forward, shielding Nora. It's over, Lang. We have the evidence. Lang laughed. You think anyone will believe you? You're just as dirty as I am? Elliot moved to stand beside Silas, his voice cold. Maybe. But we're not alone. At that moment, the fire alarm blared and chaos erupted in the hotel above. Footsteps thundered in the hallway as security rushed to respond. Lang's men hesitated, and Elliot seized the opportunity, tackling one to the ground. Silas grabbed Nora's hand, pulling her toward the emergency exit. They burst into the night, breathless and shaken. Nora looked back at the hotel, its windows ablaze with red light. She realized she'd crossed a line there was no going. Back, as sirens wailed in the distance, Silas turned to Nora, his voice gentle. Thank you for trusting me. Nora met his gaze, her fear tempered by resolve. This isn't over. In the fractured reflection of the suite's mirror, Nora had found not just secrets, but her own strength. And as dawn broke over the city, she knew the final confrontation was yet to come. Dawn crept over the city, painting the Grand Marcellus Hotel in pale gold. Nora Ellis stood on the rooftop, the wind tugging at her hair. The events of the previous night replayed in her mind, the hidden mirror, the secret camera, the desperate escape from Victor Lang and his men. She felt changed, as if she had crossed an invisible threshold. She was no longer a pawn in someone else's game. Beside her, Silas Hawthorne leaned on the stone balustrade, exhaustion etched into his features. In his hand was a flash drive, the evidence they had risked everything to obtain. Elliot Voss paced. Nearby, phone pressed to his ear as he coordinated with the authorities. Juno Park, ever loyal, had joined them at dawn, her laptop open as she worked to leak the truth to the press. Are you sure about this? Silas asked quietly, his gaze searching Nora's face. She nodded. It's the only way. If we don't expose Lang, he'll just find another way to hurt people. In this hotel, your legacy will be tainted forever. Silas hesitated, then handed her the flash drive. You're braver than you know, Nora. Elliot ended his call and joined them. The police are moving in. Lang's men won't get far. He glanced at Nora, respect in his eyes. You did good. Juno typed furiously, her screen filled with headlines and email drafts. The story's ready. Once I hit send, every major outlet in the city will have the evidence. There's no going back. Nora took a deep breath. Do it. Juno pressed a key, and the truth raced out into the world. Within minutes, chaos erupted below. Police cars swarmed the hotel's entrance. Reporters gathered, cameras flashing. Nora watched as Lang was led away in handcuffs, his face twisted in fury. The hotel staff whispered, words spreading like wildfire. Silas stood beside Nora, silent. As the world shifted around them, my family built this place on secrets, he said softly. Maybe it's time for something better. Nora looked at him, her anger softened by understanding. Can't change the past, but you can decide what comes next. Elliot approached, his usually stern face lightened by a rare smile. You to make a good team? Stick around, Nora. The hotel could use someone who actually cares. Nora laughed, the sound bright and free. I'll think about it. As the sun climbed higher, the rooftop filled with light, Nora felt the weight of fear and secrecy lift from her shoulders. She had faced the darkness behind the glass and found her own reflection staring back strong, unafraid, and ready for whatever came next. Juno closed her laptop and hugged Nora tightly. You did it. You really did it. Silas turned to Nora, his eyes filled with gratitude and something deeper. I'm sorry for everything, for the surveillance, for putting you in danger, and I never wanted you to get hurt. Nora shook her head. You didn't make me brave, Silas. It just gave me a reason to be. They stood together, watching the city wake up. The Grand Marcellus Hotel would never be the same, its secrets laid bare for all to see. But Nora knew that, in the end, the truth was worth the risk. As the morning unfolded, Nora found herself at a crossroads. Silas offered her a place at the hotel, a chance to rebuild, to create something honest from the ruins of deception. Elliot promised to watch her back, and Juno swore to keep her grounded. Nora smiled, hope blooming in her chest. She had stepped through the looking glass and come out the other side, changed but unbroken, and somewhere, deep in the heart of the city, a new story was waiting to begin.